Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is August 24th, 2012. It is Friday, the eve of the weekend. And here is your update for today. We made it, and later I'm going to be playing the Dr. Deagle NUTRIMEDICAL report, Earth Changes. So if this report runs into the other one, then I will splice it together. If not, then I will upload it separately. And I was looking online and I noticed, let's see what I got here. Let's go to Dutch Census Channel. So we're going to check that out in a second. Okay, Dutch. He had something very interesting on there. I can run that for you. Here we go. I might have to turn the fan off though. That's what that light is in the background, kind of shimmering, because I have a ceiling fan going. Here we go. New 32-degree insanity. 8/23/12. YouTube has shut down Sue Adams channel. Down. Let's get it back. So here's what he's saying.
Email. Thank you for your
Whoops. Okay, let's see here. I'll play it just for a second. Let me lower the Deagle show. I'm waiting for the... We'll lower him. Because right now he's in hour number 1. Hoping to catch him in hour number 3. Okay, here we go. We'll start it here.
Well, hello YouTube, hello Facebook, Donnie Gilson here. As you can see, Patrol's won. So, that being said, the account has been terminated due to repeat or severe violations of our terms of service. Really now. I'd like to know how that works. Well, if you agree with this, then fine. If you don't agree with this, please get this video out to everybody you know. All the work that I have done over the last 5 years is gone in the blink of an eye. Didn't back it up, didn't save it. We were about ready to do that, but such is life. Happened to Dutch. It's happened to everybody else. You know, I've had a good long run. You know, I did what I could to warn everybody. I've done everything that I can, have done, to help everybody out. You know, I might not have agreed with the trolls, and I have attacked them as well. So I guess kind of bitch. Big deal. It really doesn't matter to me. But if you believe I've done some good work, and you believe that this was in error, please write YouTube. You know, I'd like to get my work back. If not, it doesn't really matter to me. December 21st, 22nd, 23rd is on its way. I got my life to live now. I love you all. Done what I could. I've been harassed just as much as anybody on this network. This just proves to me that we were on the right track all along. And every time I've won a copyright I've won it, and they've restored it. Actually, I was in complete good standing as of yesterday, and now this is gone. And what sucks is my actual ursuadams@gmail.com is gone too, and there's a lot of email and a lot of work that is in there as well. That dates back 10 years. I could care less about, well, not 10 years, at least to 2003. Whenever Gmail came out, it was my first Gmail account. So I really don't care about the videos, but I really care about communications that I've had with people over the years. My address book, everything, gone. So, love you all.
Well. And that was on Dutch Census channel, if you'd like to check that out. And I guess somebody, heads up, you gotta always back up your stuff. If you're a YouTube channel, I guess it's happened, to a couple people on here, so best to try to do something, I guess, and always back it up. It's always good to have the hard copy, though. And that's a reminder with your cell phone book. You know, if you really need a phone number and the only place you're storing it is in your cell phone, please, over the weekend, now that the weekend is going on, I would like for you to please go through your phone book and make a hard copy, just in case your phone gets wet, just in case something happens and the battery really goes dead and you lose everything, or they can't transfer it to your new phone. It's good to have a hard copy, or you lose your phone. Alrighty then, that's a helpful prepper tip there for you. And let's start going into things. I'm going to go into, let's see here, let me see here, I'd like to go into, let me turn this up though, because I don't want to miss his show. I'm going to go into the 2012 clock in a second. But let's see if we got him on.
The first thing that the body needs is oxygen.
Okay.
If you're having...
Alrighty then. Okay, I got him on. So he'll be ready to go. Hopefully I don't have to stay up till 3 in the morning to do this. Now, moving on. I also noted that every time I switched over, the sound's not moving. Hopefully you're getting what I'm saying. So we're going to go into... Won't let me do it. Come on. Uh-oh. There we go. We're having some situation here. Okay, I'm on Dutch Sense. We're going to move it. There we go. We're going to be checking in off and on during my report so we don't miss the NutriMedical report update. First thing we'll do, let's go into the December 21st, 2012 clock. And we have, as of right now, 118 days, 9 hours, 14 minutes, and 16 seconds before December 21st, 2012, 11:11 Greenwich Mean Time. So heads up on that. Hopefully you're being, in a prepared state of mind. Also, let's see if I can find... Now, is this it? Let's see if we can find it. Here it is. Now, on the Illuminati clock that I showed the other day, here's a different countdown. It's called a Academia Omnilux. There is 15, it's actually 15 nights because it's saying noctis. Well, I guess days, but since it's probably, it goes by lunar. 15 nights, 15 hours, 25 minutes, 28 seconds. And this is until September 9th, 2012. There's some kind of clock that just keeps ticking. I'm not sure what that's about, but heads up on September 9th. I don't know where this clock came from. It's a riddle of some kind, but I'm working on it to see if I can stop the clock. I think that's the whole point of this. Someone has to try to stop the clock, or something's going to happen on September 9th, according to the Illuminati clock. This looks like a giant eye of Horus, or all-seeing eye. Alright, moving on. Let's go into the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Extinction Protocol. Let's see where he's at. No, he's still talking to Michelle, so that's the regular program. That's still hour 1. Alrighty then, let's see here. Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. In fracture unraveling, section of bridge in China collapses, killing 3. Oh. Okay. Come on. Alright, we're not moving. Okay, let's see here. Alert level raised on previously extinct Colombian Satara volcano. An eruption would be first known in recorded history. Heads up in Colombia. And that's from an extinct volcano. Wow. They're all going off. Greece exit from the Eurozone. War in the Middle East. Will all hell break loose after U.S. election? Oh, okay. Israel consoling intentions with leaks. Okay, whatever that is. 4 quakes rocked Nepal in past 12 hours. 5.6, 4.4. What else do we have? It says 5 of them. Let's scroll down. Let's see if we can get further down here. .2. That's all and a 4.4. That's all I show. Okay, but 4 quakes rocked Nepal in past 12 hours. Okay, here's something else. Alright, heads up. Researchers identify rare adult immune disease in Asia. Looks gross. Looks like a bunch of boils. Doctors have identified the disease as a syndrome that creates AIDS-like symptoms, but say it's not a virus and it's not contagious. Oh yeah, heads up. You know? God, it almost looks like extremely blistery acne bubbles. Oh. Bunch of pus pockets all over someone. Oh, it's gross. Okay, what else we got? going on? That's yesterday's. Yesterday, double typhoons on course to slam China. 6 storms since the start of August. Tropical storm Isaac possesses threat to southern coast of Florida, and it's moving straight up, almost to Pensacola. So, heads up, if you're going to travel, I would, start traveling now. Remember, take plenty of food, water, get as much gasoline as you can if you're in Florida. Looks like it's gonna slightly dig into the east side of, a little bit past central, I think. Looking at the trajectory, almost seems like it'll involve central Florida also, in the direction it's going. Oh yes, we'll see what happens. Just heads up, everyone in Florida, if no one's sure, everyone in Florida, be prepared. Make sure you get plenty of those outdoor lights too. Those are nice, the ones that are lit right now. You put them in your windows and you'll have light. The little solar lights for the walkway, they make good flashlights. When people see the light on them, oh, stay away from your house. Alrighty then. We'll move on. Let me check and see what's going on Dr. Deagle's channel real quick.
Very nicely, and you won't have to spend a fortune on TA65, and our product is more powerful.
Well, another day?
Okay, they're going into hour number 2, so I might have to attach this for you. It might be a separate video, maybe. Okay, moving on. I'm trying to go a little bit slow so that hopefully I can just segue into the show and don't have to do a double info writing on this setup. We might catch the last part of hour number 2. That might be also what I might do. It might be extra long Dr. Deagle show tonight. Okay, we'll go into the watchers. Watching the world. Ancient Egypt study augments the drought theories. Where'd it go? There it is. Also, what else do we have? Let's see here. Wacky channel. Come on. I'm scrolling up and down. It just doesn't want to give me information. Let's see here. Let's go all the way up and let's try it again. Here we go. Activity at Kizmin and Shivalach volcanoes on Kamchatka Peninsula, eastern Russia. Also, Reactor 1 of Uljan nuclear power plant automatically shut down South Korea. Heads up, South Korea. I guess one of their nuclear plants automatically shut down. Pacific tropical weather outlook. Timbin targets Taiwan, and Bolaween is heading for Okinawa and Ryukyu Island. I don't know what that was. Yeah, go check it out, dogs. I heard something clicking in the other room. Atlantic tropical weather outbreak. Let's see. Large wildfire burned half of Chios Island, Greece. Also, this was yesterday, new study maps glacier mass change in the Himalayas. Alrighty then, that's enough of that. We'll check out SOT.net in a minute. Let's go to that one. We haven't been there for a few days. Let's see what he's doing.
It's a synergistic blend of 7 ingredients that are designed to essentially to...
Okay, good. We're in the second hour now. I might give you an extra amount of show tonight so we can clean the house and do whatever you need to do. And it'll be just like listening to the radio. You don't have to watch the screen. Alrighty then. SOT.net. Hundreds of racing pigeons vanish in UK Bermuda Triangle of birds. Heads up! Uh-oh. That was today. What's going on over there? Stop it. What are you guys doing? Come on. Comes Tippy. Come up here. Come up here. Oh. Thank you. What are you guys doing in the other room? All three, the cat and the 2 dogs are running around. So, let me repeat that again. Hundreds of racing pigeons vanish in UK Bermuda Triangle of birds. Pigeon racers are mystified after hundreds of birds disappear and they have now dubbed the Bermuda Triangle. Wow. Oh, and they're saying they all... Keith Simpson of East Cleveland Federation said pigeon racers across the region had all suffered massive losses since the season started in April, with many losing more than half of their birds. Wow, that's weird. Some fanciers are considering stopping flying the birds until they establish why so many failed to return. Ooh, that's weird. There's some kind of vortex over there. Heads up. Global warming, only 6 days of summer in Stockholm this year. Summer weather was miserable. Now there's proof, says the article out of Sweden. Alright. Signs of impending global cataclysm in August 2012. And this is dated Thursday, August 16th. This is from Extreme Weather. Earth changes, earthquakes, sinkholes, floods, droughts, snow, mass animal deaths, and perhaps most symbolically, of all, the U.S. flag falling at an Olympic medal ceremony? I didn't know that. Did people hear about that? Oh, note the video does not imply the world is going to end in 2012, but it sure is a striking collection of signs of the times. Wow. It's crazy. And then it has under here, fireballs impacting the ground, more strange sky sounds, multiple tornadoes, water spouts, unusual lighting strikes. A lot of things happening, okay. Wow. Also, chemtrails propaganda alert cities, countries nationwide begin mass aerial sprayings of toxic anti-West Nile virus pesticide. Heads up, and that's out of Dallas County, Texas. So I guess, I don't know, if you see them spraying something, or you think they are, better get inside and don't turn on your air conditioner. Don't bring the air in. Cycle it. Recycle your air. I don't know. It's probably bad for everyone. Alrighty then. Moving on. Let's go to E&E News. The energy news. This is a big report tonight. Let's see what
It's going there with oxygen.
Okay, he's still talking. He's going to be talking, but let's see. When I get done, we're just going to run him. I'm going to turn the camera around. It's going to be close. Let's see. Fukushima. E&E News. Japan. Yamada. We cannot cover Fukushima Daiichi reactors like after Chernobyl. It's more complex. Also today. So I guess they're saying they can't cover it. Uh-oh. Also today. Listen. Melta fuel may have broken through concrete under reactors, HEPCO. Just assuming it didn't. Fukushima volunteer. NHK. Many Fukushima nuclear workers leaving after exceeding exposure limit. Young people must be trained to work at plant. Tokyo professor. 6-year-old playing on radioactive waste dump 20 kilometers north of Fukushima Daiichi. Heads up! Heads up! Listen to this. 6-year-old playing on radioactive waste dump 20 kilometers north of Fukushima Daiichi. That's like a crime against humanity, okay? That is so wrong. That is so terrible that they're letting this stuff happen. Teacher, I'm lying to a room full of students. Fukushima City should be evacuated. They're still over there. Teacher, I'm lying to a room full of students. Fukushima City should be evacuated. Why are they still over there? Also, this is crimes against humanity. I don't understand. I don't care what Agenda 21 someone thinks they have out there. You're all going to be liable for this stuff. And if it's not through the government, then it's going to be a higher power. You'll see. Reactor specialist on Unit 3. I can't tell you if it's a hydrogen explosion or a nuclear explosion. Japan nuclear expert. Melted fuel may have gone through cement floor and into ground under Fukushima reactors. I don't believe TEPCO's claim for 1 second. Where in the world is it? Alrighty, Asahi from yesterday. Government calculations were way off. Anti-nuclear sentiment has grown so large it could force change in energy policy. Alrighty then. Where are we?
2016-65.
Okay, they're at a commercial. I want to hear when they come back. Let's hear.
850.
We'll keep checking. It might be close. I don't want you to miss any of it. Okay, today... Oh, this is yesterday for U.S. Canada. Chemist. Residents near Sinkhole already reporting respiratory problems, headaches, concern over impact of many chemicals in air at the same time.
Send this in my...
Officials. Sinkhole measurements unavailable. Police want study of simultaneous venting of the aquifer as the exploratory rig is being drilled.
837.
State shows concern over drilling into salt dome under sinkhole. Hazmat unit has increased staffing to provide 24-hour operational support. DEQ will be monitoring air quality around the clock.
Health secret ever.
Alrighty then. We're gonna do, let's look at Pastor Paul Bagley maybe. Sometimes he has, let's listen.
And anti...
I'm waiting for him to come back. Alrighty then. Alrighty.
Is improved, Doc?
Not yet. Okay, let's look here.
That's camera.
No. No, we don't have that. Okay. Let's go back to YouTube.
Increasing neutral...
Nope, still commercial.
Shelter.
Yeah. Alrighty, what do I want to look at? Oh, maybe we'll look at something else.
Order.
Oh, we're waiting. Can't run the commercials. I'll try to dig up some more news for you guys.
Over a decade, we are the GTN Radio Network. 445, Tuesday at 4 or 445. Get back to the break. Okay. And we are joined by Ryan and continuing our discussion on NutriMeds. And we had some interesting...
It's alright. We'll do a couple more things and then we'll go to his show. Alright, we'll cut into it in a minute. Let's see what we got going on here, some of the headlines. Okay. Power players. Biden understands his role. What else do we got going on here? 9 people injured in shooting believed to be hit by stray police bullet. Oh yes, today there was a shooting at the Empire State Building. That happened today. Also, South African hippo stuck in swimming pool dies. Oh, that's a sad thing. Also, Surrey cruise reportedly to get $400,000 a year from dad. Samsung loses high-stakes patent trial against Apple. Navy vet shot by deputy in own backyard. Family seeks answers. Confidential document lays out Assange police tactics. Assange, the guy from WikiLeaks, I guess. Anything else? The hidden risks of getting a tattoo. Well, we all know that. You can get a dirty needle, get diseases, you could be allergic to the ink, all kinds of weird stuff, and then you might have a hard time getting a job. You know? Up to you. I saw, though, they are coming out with a type of tattoo. They call it candy tattoo, where it's only seen by a black light. That's something to consider. I was watching that on one of the cable channels. I ran across that today. So heads up on that. If you are into tattoos, maybe you want the kind that only a black light will see. Alrighty then. Alright, we're going to go to the Dr. Deagle NutriMedical report, because I think that's all the news I can find for today. Let's get out of this. There you go. That was some extra news for you, because I hate to stop all this, upload, and then I might miss the show. It takes about almost 3.5 hours or something. It goes on a loop. Alrighty then. So, it's 5 days down, and it's almost time to listen to the Dr. Deagle NutriMedical report. Alrighty, let me take this down. We're going to aim this at the wall. The writing is on the wall. Let's see what we got. I'm going to turn it down now.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it down when the commercials are on, because I can't play their sponsors. Not that they would mind. They probably wouldn't mind, but I can't do that. I don't think I'm supposed to. All right. So you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the Friday. Now you can go about your business. You don't have to stare at the screen. Not that you were looking at me anyway. And enjoy the Dr. Deagle NutriMedical report. He's going to talk about some of his products. But that's fine. You'll learn something about how some of its products work. And, you know, you'll learn a little bit of biology. If you don't know it already, it'll be a review for you on organic chemistry and microbiology and biomechanics. I had all those classes. Alrighty then, here we go. I'm going to turn the camera around for you, and I'm going to home in on the wall.
Usually, you know, within 20 to 30 minutes, people notice significant change in the way that they're thinking and functioning. It is a wonderful product.
We're waiting on the earth changes.
For people. And SAM-methyl, that uses the active ingredient known as S-adenomethine, or SAMe. What's unique about this is it comes in a powder. It's not a tablet, not an enteric-coated tablet, like pretty much everything in the market. And what's great about this is it absorbs right through the buccal mucosal lining of the gum. So when you put it in your mouth, you get a very rapid absorption into the bloodstream. It can affect the brain. There's been some brainwave studies with it where the individuals are stressed and then given this material, and within 1 hour retested for under stress, and the brainwave activity is completely normal, as if the person is under no stress. So it just bears to keep in mind how quickly this can help with the methylation process, and that works on the neurotransmitter side of things, but it's in every cell of the body that we have to methylate properly. So there can be pain issues like osteoarthritis, there can be liver dysfunction, certainly things like depression are highly indicated to look at something like S-adenomethionine, which you find in the 10-methyl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now the one of the mechanisms we haven't talked about a while is the nitric oxide pathway, and this plays in a lot of different diseases. One of the experts that I've had in my program is Martin Paul, and it ties in with things like superoxide dismutase activity. It ties in with free radical damage of singlet oxygen. It ties in with the production of interleukins, IFN gamma, TNF alpha, IL-1 beta, IL-2, etc., IL-13. These inflammatory cytokines are tied directly. Supernox is very good for this. It's stopping these cytokine, and it's also tied in with glutathione depletion. So I tell people we need to treat both sides, both the nitric oxide pathway imbalances with Supernox when people have fibromyalgia, but also giving mitochondrial support. So we use things like anti-H max, Supernox, and Nutritional, which affect these different pathways, and also replacing the glutathione and the other enzyme imbalances that are actually consumed by folic acid deficiency. So Supernox is important, power-methyl B12 is important, and SEM-ethyl, because you get a deficiency of SEM-ethyl, you get what's called methyl capping. So, this gets a little more technical, but what really happens is you've got to do all of these things in order to fix things like fibromyalgia, chronic pain syndromes, inflammatory disorders like ALS. ALS is basically a nitric oxide pathway activated free radical disorder. The same with many other conditions like fibromyalgia, chronic pain syndromes like chronic regional pain syndrome type 1 and 2. And we use cell detox glutathione, we use Nutritional in Regenerex, and we have to also support the nitric oxide pathways and these enzymes. So let's kind of run through some of these as to how they all tie together when we come back.
Well, I gotta turn it down, so sorry about that. But we can't run the commercials. Now, some of it you might want to just listen to and walk around. Might not understand what he's saying. Others might enjoy this. But we don't want to miss the Earth Change Report. He'll probably talk about that sinkhole is what I'm thinking, and he'll probably also give an update on whatever else is going on out there. All the earth changes, volcanoes, he'll explain it all. So that's why we're catching the show in the middle of the second hour. We don't want to wait till way later. So this is good. This is going to be a long show for you, but it's going to be worth it. Alrighty then. See, if I could pause this and continue, I would do it. But I don't think I can pause and continue it, so. Alrighty then. Oh. Let's see what's going on. Well, if you're not leaving Florida and you're staying home, make sure you have a lot of water in bottles. And you can also take your soda bottles and cut them in half, and that way you'll have funnels and things to, like cups if you don't have cups or you need to store things. But if you'll feel better that you have a little bit of plastic on them, you can cut your plastic soda bottles in half and use them for some kind of protection. Just don't get cut by them. Sometimes the plastic is sharp, so don't rub your fingers across the edges of any of that stuff. You might want to put a piece of tape around the edges of the funnel part, or around the top that you're going to use as a cup-like thing for, You know, I find those things are pretty cool when you put a whole bunch of like toothpaste, little tubes of toothpaste, hair conditioner, things like that in them, so it doesn't take so much room in the medicine cabinet. It's all organized. Or nail polish, you can shove them all in that and put them up in the cabinet. Hold on a minute.
Our offering.
Oh, it's still commercial. We'll be alright, you know. So, I gotta sit here and wait till the commercial's over. Alrighty then. Just make sure you have plenty of camphor. Make sure nothing's on the floor in case something's gonna flood. And if you do, make sure it's like plastic. Plastic's good for this. Oh yes. Also, someone told me when a hurricane comes by, make sure that it's almost like depressurizing your house. Just make sure like you got crosswind going through. They're saying like you open a window, a crack maybe on one side of the house, and open the window on the other side of the house, so you have like a cross depressurization type of thing. That's someone that's lived here and born here all your life. She told me that. Person I was talking to. No. Make sure if you don't have a generator, make sure you get stuff, you know, you might even be able to go to a boater's store and get one of those little, you could get little solar panel that you plug into. They're like 25 bucks. And a crank radio. Oh, he's back.
Welcome back, and we talked a little bit about what's called as nitric oxide. Peroxynitrate, what happens is people want to know what happens when a tissue gets injured, let's say in an injured tissue. It's not just an autoimmune reaction, it's a biochemical reaction. And the induction of what's called the nitric oxide pathway. And I want to bring on Dr. Martin Paul to talk about this. He's a PhD biochemist from Pullman University in Washington. And he's written quite a research book. A colleague of Dr. Steve Levine, who used to be the head of biochemistry research at UC Berkeley, who I collaborate with and wrote and reviewed his book back in the early 1980s with Paris Kidd on free radicals. What happens is in a spinal cord or in the brain or any target tissue, a lot of illness is actually caused by a biochemical reaction. It's not even an autoimmune reaction, although autoimmunity can be occurring too. Peroxynitrate basically is what's called ONOO. And peroxynitrate is a primary radical that causes vascular damage or brain damage. The nastiest radical is singlet oxygen, then hydroperoxy radical, and nitric oxide, what's called peroxynitrate radical. Peroxynitrate radical we can eliminate with things like power methyl B12, the power methyl B12 and superfolate, sammethyl, things such as the Immunomax. Immunomax is lactoferrin that grabs the free iron. We also have our NutriDefense, which I designed. Free iron because it's a Fenton reaction. When we talk about people after a stroke, a lot of time it's not just the low stroke, it's the biochemical reaction to the hypoxic response that causes the ongoing, called death reflex in the mitochondria, or the metabolic stasis where the nerve cells stop to fire. So only about 2% of nerve cells die after a stroke in an area. Usually the other 98% are in metabolic stasis, and they have an ongoing induction of biochemical pathways. That's why, for example, after static vaccines for kids, the heavy metals actually are inducing the nitroperoxy radical pathway. So if you have a kid that's had vaccines, this is for adults too, you have to tamp down or block down, because you can have literally your microglial brain cells in their spinal cord or brain after, say, traumatic spinal cord injury, where things like berberstatin will release TRH, which helps to tamp it down, Immunomax, tamps it down, and also power methyl B12, superfolate, and sammethyl. We're trying to block those pathways, and then of course, so it's not just a inflammatory. Now, it induces inflammatory molecules where we need cell defense and Inflamax to actually stop the inflammation. But the primary process is actually biochemical. nitric oxide stimulation. And that's where it also comes in. If you don't block that, you also get mitochondrial damage, where you need, therefore, AH max, supernox, which is very important for rebalancing the nitric oxide pathway, and Nutritional and cell detox glutathione, and Regenerex. So let's talk about these for a minute, because it covers a whole range of diseases where my approach is more in line with Dr. Paul and research scientists that are doing this than even a lot of the natural docs that just kind of play around. Oh, it's an inflammatory process. It's not just a glutathione depletion process. It's a nitric oxide pathway induction process. It's a biochemical process that can stay induced enzymatically for years. So if you give a kid a bunch of stacked vaccines, they can have those pathways induced for years after the stacked vaccines. Post-traumatic concussion in the head, radiation induction, and somebody gets radiation cerebritis, where their cortex and their deeper nuclei get blasted with radiation for cancer, or if they get a compressed spinal cord injury from a traction injury in a car accident. They're all basically nitric oxide pathway diseases. Interesting, eh?
Quite, yeah. That was very interesting.
Yeah. And I know I raced over that a bit, so it gets a little technical, but if you have questions, when you look and say, well, why did you put this in the protocol? It's because there's some biochemistry. And in fact, you can actually measure, I worked with Dr. Austin, in Austin, New York, Dr. Miroff, but for 25 years. We measure what's called the nitroproxy radical end-stage metabolite. And in everybody with any major illness, whether it's a stroke, ALS, autoimmune diseases, post-traumatic spinal or brain injury, they had elevated what's called the final metabolite of nitroproxy radical in every single disease. So in other words, if you can tamp that down, if you can shut it down, and you see that metabolite level drop, it means that you're getting control of the biochemistry in the target tissue that's now going crazy. And it's a biochemical enzyme induction problem. Interesting, eh?
Yeah, this is, I mean, this kind of knowledge that people listening to your show, they pick up. It's so critical out there. They're making good decisions, and also not taking supplements, too, that they may choose thinking they're helpful.
They think, if I got an inflamed brain, I'm going to just take a over-the-counter anti-inflammatory. Or their doctor knows no biochemistry, doesn't even know what metabolites to measure, doesn't know what genes are present. Maybe that person's got a polymorphism of catechol methyltransferase, glutathione methyltransferase 1 gene, maybe the gene deletion, or a polymorphism called a SNP, or a single nucleotide polymorphism. If you don't test those, you don't know. And I tell people, I'm not their doctor, but I'm going to give them advice as to what tests and what they can do to help with their doctor. And I train the doctors. They call me and consult, and they say, I can't believe this. You're going to do this for free. I said, yeah, I'm trying to teach. I'll teach you what tests to do. And I'm constantly studying and reading, so I get to read and study all the time. It's great. I'm a great professor. And they'll call me from all over the world, and I'll say, this is what you need to do, doc. This is a lab you can use. These are the supplements that work. They'll purchase the supplements from us, whether they're in Australia or Europe. And we tell them, here's how you can measure what we're telling you is working in your person, whether they've had a stroke, or they've got into heart failure, or they're in renal failure, or you're trying to prepare the tissues. So if you do a stem cell transplant or an umbilical cord transplant, the tissue, like an Iowa, farmer, has prepared the soil so the stem cell can go like a seed, tunnel into the tissues, differentiate, and actually become the same. But if you got a whole lot of free radical, peroxynitrate radical, singlet oxygen, no nutrients, all the other things, why do you think it's going to take? It's not going to take. So, in other words, to get back to, I call taking engineering systems nonlinear approach to cell biochemistry, the terrain, in other words. The best way to describe what we're doing is what I call terrain medicine, or I call it quantum nutrimedics. In other words, we're looking at the system biology of how a healthy cell is. If you have a healthy cell, even if there's pathogens nearby, it's very unlikely to get infected. So the germ theory is extremely deficient, and unhealthy cells get toxins, unhealthy cells get enzyme induction, unhealthy tissues, or if there's a gene defect, and you stack vaccines and give a child without genetic testing, it's not surprising that they're going to end up with induction of enzymes. They're going to fry their little brains, and they're going to become autistic, and the neural pathways to their frontal and language centers and areas of their brain are going to get dysmyelinated, and you're going to get lack of brain development and functional atrophy or lack of growth in those areas. People say, Dr. Deagle, I disagree. I said, well, go and do the tests. You don't need to do a Zeta score and have 150 kids in your study, you simply do the test and you can see the changes that occur in one person, like PET scan or quantitative EEG. You can see the differences, or if you look at oxidative markers like hydroxy 2'-deoxyguanosine, T-bars, and other signs of DNA adducts, you can measure those. It's no longer, speculation. You can actually measure it. So sometimes I get a little technical, but I think it's important people realize there's a lot more science behind what we do here at NutriMedical than you're going to find anywhere else, except you go to the top academy, like the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, American College for Advancement in Medicine, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, with the top doctors in the world. So let's talk about some of the nutraceuticals. My favorite, I start off my day with 2 scoops of glycemics, 1 scoop of Ageless and Life Support, and I drink that during the day. That's my breakfast, lunch, and why should they do that? Tell us all about what's in Ageless, Life Support, and glycemics.
Wow.
Are you there, Ryan? I think we lost our connection.
Uh-oh.
We may have to come back with Ryan after the break and see if we can reconnect. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned to the NutriMedical Report. Major course camp in Arrow 3. Preparedness, Civil Defense, and Earth Changes. Major report with Ann Morrison, Alexander Bachman. We've tried to confirm from Mexico. Christina Consolo, our nuclear expert on mutations from Fukushima, and animals, insects, and plants. Back in a moment.
You see, he's talking about what I was trying to put up for. Did you know that I used the video editor and it was still loading after 48 hours later? I had some mutations. I tried it again and it's like it's being censored or something. I tried twice now. So what I might do is I'm just going to have to point the camera at it so you can see it. That might be what I have to do for educational purposes. But I had a whole slew of new mutations, and I did put it public. It never showed up. It's still processing. I don't know if it showed up on any of my subscribers' uploads that I had uploaded the thing. I don't know. But at least Dr. Deagle, you can't see it, but you'll hear about it. He is just so intelligent. He is like that Doogie Howser when he was younger. Because he's not that old. I think he's just turning 60. I think he's still in his 50s. And he's talking way back in the 70s and all that he was doing. He's like that Doogie Howser. He was way, way ahead of his time. So, in schooling, he was way ahead of everybody. So, I think he's awesome, and I think he's just so intelligent just to hear him talking most. And I'm understanding a lot of things that he's saying due to the medical classes. So, you know, so even if you don't understand, you can always pause it, pull back on the little white button, and hear it again. You can, you can replay it. For those who don't know how to do it, you just left click, hold that button, and pull it back, and it'll replay what he just said in case you found something very interesting, or you just replay it all again and write it down. Now, let's see if he's back.
And a study showed that.
No, he took an early break because I think he lost his caller, Ryan. I guess that helps him out with the formulas and everything with this stuff. He's some kind of associate or chemist that helps makes his products, or it's their products, and he backs them up and endorses them. But let's go back to prepping. Since if you're listening from Florida, or if you have any kind of thing coming towards you, like a typhoon, or you're somewhere in the world, now you should make a list. Okay, let's say it's Monday, it's going to come, whatever's coming, typhoon, hurricane. First you want to make a list. You want to have your go bag in case you have to go. If you're going to stick it out, you got to make sure you have plenty of water. Plenty of water, maybe to last 6 weeks at least. And plenty of solar-powered stuff. If you can afford generators, fine, but this is for the little guy who doesn't really have any money right now.
SAP.
So make sure, also get some vitamins. Let's say you don't have a lot of good food, at least if you supplement with some vitamins. Maybe you got some chewable vitamins, like, you know, chewable vitamins. If you got the good vitamins for NutriMedical, yeah, that's cool. But if not, get some cheapo dollar store vitamins, something to supplement in case you don't have a lot of food. If you can do it now, make sure that you take a bunch of empty soda bottles, fill them up with water, put them on the bottom shelf of the freezer, if you have a top freezer. Here he's back again.
Welcome back, and Ryan, let's get back into some of these important topics. Let's pick out some of these things. Well, why would you take ageless light support glycemic mix? And of course, I throw in a scoop of NutriComplete, which is very complete, better than juicing, with probiotics, enzymes, etc. Why would you do it? What's in it?
Well, NutriComplete is a red and green drink mix. It tastes really good. It's got a berry flavor to it, so kids and adults will be able to use it. The idea is obviously raising up your beneficial nutrients for antioxidants and all these beneficial nutrients that are within these organic compounds. And as you said, the formulation of NutriComplete also delivers the enzymes for digestion, the probiotics for good gut health, and then also a really good load of fiber as well to help round out the diet. So it's really a great formulation that can be added to anybody's diet. And then also using it with the other forms of the shake, the ageless life support glycemic meal, very easy that you can just add NutriComplete to any of those shakes and enhance them even further than what they already do. Most people really fall in love with the shakes. First off, they taste so good. They have wonderful mouthfeel. They're smooth, and people are blown away by the effectiveness of the formulations because they are so therapeutic. They all have very significant amounts of protein, patented protein in there for high absorbability and digestibility, so it's utilized. And each formulation kind of has its own unique mechanism. So something like Ageless really is kind of the anti-aging formulation. It's the regulator of the immune system. It's a very unique aspect to stimulating phase 2 specific detoxification. People fall in love with that because they take it, whether they're an elite athlete or a really compromised individual, and do quite well in just a matter of days and how they feel. And formulations like Life Support. Life Support is a very well-rounded anti-inflammatory detoxification shake. It's designed to seal up leaky gut, normalize phase 1, phase 2 liver function, regulate inflammation systemically around the body, and at the same time provide a great meal replacement. And then glycemic meal for those individuals that really need to work on their weight and their glucose management. This one is built so that it creates satiety effect. It's built so that your cells are more sensitized to the message of insulin. And these things hit on so many different levels. You can talk about each formulation for a half hour easy on the science that goes into these different nutrients and why they're in there. But people will just love the effectiveness of these things. And especially, as you pointed out, people don't like to swallow a whole lot of pills. So using these shakes as a base for a lot of people gets an incredible result.
Yeah, it really does make an amazing difference, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
now, when we look at some of the other nutraceuticals that we have, it's like a symphony. The best way to describe it is like a symphony of wellness. It's not going to be the same as just going online or walking through a pharmacy and just picking vitamins. For example, we get people say, I want to reverse diabetes. Well, you want to start off with berberstatin, diabetoline max, and chromium cruciferate. Berberstatin and diabetoline max. Berberstatin is going to release TRH. The way TRH works in the other peptides on the gut there's a whole series of gut peptides that are released by berberstatin and diabetoline max, mainly berberstatin, is it's going to impinge on the fat cells that do not send inflammatory molecules to the muscle cells and their liver and the tissues of the body. It normalizes the cellular metabolism of your adipocytes, which are an exocrine organ. It's actually a hormone-producing organ that can produce inflammatory molecules. We call it angry fat. When we look at bone issues, we talked about our bone generator, micelle D3, collagen max, mountain red deer velvet, which we add, power C+, the only neutral vitamin C in the world, and along with 7-menadione, which is a full vitamin K2. We can reverse osteoporosis very quickly. We add exercise like VibraSlim, which is vibrational exercise to compress the piezoelectric crystals of the bone. When we have people that have memory problems, we tell them right off the bat, cognition, ignition, brain power, and synaptin. Brain power, very important. Vinpocetine, it helps you make new synapse connections. It's the third stage memory. First stage is virtual, which is a action potential neural network. Second stage is what's called enzyme induction. And the third stage is new neural pathway synthesis and what's called microtubules, which is a hard, we call quantum download into the non-localized area of neurons. So that's why memory is not just stored in one neuron, it's stored in millions. Interesting, eh? Which is why, of course, the current engineering techniques can't decode memory because it's non-localized. So let's talk about this. What's in brain power? Why is it so important for people just to keep their function? And of course, we talked about calm mind earlier. What's in brain power?
Well, brain power, as you said, is a vinpocetine, and vinpocetine comes from the jujube plant, and it enhances the within the brain tissue itself. It enhances the delivery of oxygen and other nutrients to the brain. They basically are giving it better fuel to operate off of, and then at the same time, it has a dramatic effect of bringing down inflammatory aspects that can happen in the brain, which are very damaging, can interfere obviously with cognition aspects of memory, but then create long-term damage that you certainly don't want to occur. And so brain power is a way that enhances the function of the brain, at the same time enhancing the protection of the brain.
Exactly. Now everybody knows about our collagen max. We have the drops. 5 drops equals 1 capsule. It's something that I think everybody should be on. If you want to call it the fiber optic high-speed network for the body's cell communication is collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid. And if you want to build it, you need collagen max. It is not collagen. A lot of people say, oh, I'm taking collagen already from Dr. XYZ. This is not collagen. It's choline-stabilized orthosilicic acid. It's completely different. And then we look at dealing with the bowel. We have colon cleanse, which is, as I say, it'll move the dead, keep your colon clear of mucus plaque in the lower bowel. Everybody should be on a probiotic. Living probiotic is the Roussel 6 strain, the best general probiotic you can get in the world. It has bifidus strains, it has lactobacillus bifidus, it has all the other probable strains. And then, of course, the Living Probiotic Ultra. This is what we call the Special Forces strain. And if you have colitis, like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, or IBS, you need to be on it 1 a day. For the Living Probiotic, you should take 1 every meal. We have for energetics in the cell, Nutritional, Supernox, and Anti-Age Max. Tell us the pathways these work on, and of course they work great with our CoQ10 Supreme, which is the first non-crystallizing CoQ10 in the world, and we have the CoQ10 Supreme Ubiquinol, which is really powerful. I mean, you got to not take this too late in the day, or you're going to be like the Energizer Bunny at night. So tell us about these different nutraceuticals.
Well, yeah, Supernox, Vascunox, Anti-Age Max, and Nutritional. Those 3 are really working. Well, there's 4 there, but 2 of them are designed to work on the nitric oxide pathway, Supernox and Vascunox. And you have methylated resveratrol and the Anti-Age Max, and then you have the long-lasting alpha-lipoic acid in the Nutritional. Those 3 actually, when working together, all work on different pathways that mimic the effect of exercise in the body. When you go and exercise, you'll upregulate what's known as PGC1 alpha. That's what gets the mitochondria operating at a much higher level so that you burn fuel properly. You also increase your capabilities of enhancing your energy production. And things like blood sugar regulation, neurodegeneration, cardiovascular challenges, things like that, what happens is you move them in the right direction. And so when you take this triad, if you will, you're creating and mimicking effects of what the body wants to have happen. And so instead of you going to the gym for a half hour, your body thinks you're going for an hour and a half. You get those beneficial effects and you feel those beneficial effects. And you can add, as you pointed out, that fourth aspect being, the CoQ10 Supreme or CoQ10 Supreme ubiquinol. And as you said, these can have a jump-starting effect on people's energy.
If we have somebody with, let's say, chronic fatigue, memory problems, cardiac failure, decreased renal function, CoQ10 ubiquinol is going to kickstart those nephrons. Then we have things for diabetics or people trying to lose weight, lipoflush. Very, very important. It's a conjugated linoleic acid in a medical grade. We have for cancer prevention, malignant block. Malignant rest, by the way, which is the special wheat germ extract that's developed by Dr. Svet Georgi. Malignant rest will actually block cell growth in abnormal cells, including autoimmune disease, as well as cancer and precancer cell changes. So again, the orchestra of NutriMeds combined with, as I say, the power ones, oxygen, NutriMeds, energetics, and size and stem cells, you can get well. And you don't need drugs. You can avoid drugs at all costs because they're always considered toxins, they're always foreign to the body, and they always throw things out of balance. So you need to try to use everything you can, lifestyle, diet, and nutrition, before you ever reach for the pill bottle. Amazing program today. Thank you, Ryan. We did a great show. And of course, back in just a few minutes with hour number 3, Preparedness, Civil Defense, Earth Changes. We have Alexander Bachman with a special report, and Morrison. John Moore will be back next week. Christina Consolo at the bottom of the hour with a major update on Fukushima, radiation damage to insects, birds, animals all across the northern hemisphere. Back in a moment.
Wow, that was a lot of talking. But this is good. You could be getting stuff done. You don't just sit there and stare at the screen. It's bad for your eyes anyway. That's why I wear my sunglasses half the time. Alrighty then. To continue, if you have some empty soda bottles, 2-liter bottles, I would fill them up with water and put them on the bottom shelf of your freezer. It's a top freezer. Not sure if it'll work too well with a bottom freezer. Remember, cold will travel down, like the old ice boxes. And sometimes that works for a few days. It has for me, especially if you can use well water. But you're better off with water you can drink. That's a better idea. Unless your well water is filtered. But it seems like it's heavier and it'll defrost a lot slower. It's heavy water, as they say. Also, make sure you have your important papers in a box that's like waterproof, maybe a tackle box and up high on the shelf, but ready to go. Make sure you have enough food for your pets. You can stretch it with some canned foods that you and the pets can eat. You know, like canned chicken. If the tuna's trusted, remember a lot of the tuna's contaminated. Make sure you know where it's from. What else? Contaminated with radiation. Hopefully you have enough salt, because you don't want to dehydrate. Plus you can use salt for all kinds of things. Excuse me. I had a tooth pulled. That's why I wasn't looking too happy. Someone noticed it and thought I looked tired. No, I had a back molar that had broken vertically in half for the last couple months, and when they pulled it out, the whole thing shattered, and they had to pull out each root, all 4 roots. So I guess somehow you could see that. I guess in my eyes. But yeah, the mouth is pretty sore. Let's see.
In near completion, what's your website? Is it called? Do you go to alexanderbachman.com, BACKMAN.com?
Precisely. It's a report. We closed it just for $1. You can read it. You can help us out with that. Just pitch in $1 and we can provide it, the PDF. Fine. It's a well-referenced article. It took some while to research all of this, but you know it's worth it because eventually we're maturing the information in order to get it to the appropriate hands. So things can and measures can be taken to stop this ongoing invasion, because it is an invasion by stealth. It's already going. It's ongoing. For example, today there was another alert by a person in Kentucky emailing Steve Quayle that there were 5 black helicopters with Russian markings flying over Kentucky and looking for landing zones.
Yeah, when I was in Colorado, I think, oh, this is over the top. I had military contacts as a civilian. I had all kinds of contacts that were still working with the military and had contracts with them. And there were all kinds of activities back in the mid-'90s. This is not something new with the Obama administration. This has been going on for decades, probably since the 70s when Richard Nixon went to China. But we'd have foreign troops on our soil learning weapons and tactics from the former CIS nations, Russia and China, in the Pike National Forest, all over Colorado and other states. Some of them are embedded. They're actually here. I remember in the same apartment building that I was at in the last year I was in practice in Colorado. I had moved my family back to Canada, and I was still in the process of closing my practice in 2004. There was a group of Russian men who were not employed. It was like 7 of them. They all looked like special forces. And I can tell you, just from the conversation and their activities, they weren't employed. We see this all over the place, okay? We're not just talking about guys that look like special forces. We're talking about actual troop movements, actual vehicles, and other material. Plus, we have to understand that the Mexican government and the global governments, you know, we've got to remember the Mexican government has been cooperative with the globalists. They've cooperated with the sale of all the highways to the People's Republican Army, the PLA, Hutchinson Wampoa, that the Russians have had major troop movements in Venezuela, and the pre-placement of nuclear missile silos in the Guatemalan-Mexican border in the jungle of the border of Mexico and Guatemala, as well as in Venezuela. This is no joke. People need to understand that at any one time there's all kinds of activity and preparation, and that's why they're training Mexican federales to come up to America if there were, quote, a natural disaster or a reason to invite them.
Now imagine this scenario: Chinese nuclear warheads on Mexican soil.
Not surprising at all.
Okay.
Not surprising at all, but people don't understand that what Obama's doing on the economic scale. And I just read a report from Mr. Weiss, actually, who lives outside of Shanghai. He's a major investment advisor, which I got his report. And what it basically says is that Obama and the globalists are collaborating to devalue the U.S. dollar majorly in the near future, while they raise the yuan so they can reduce the debt that they have to pay with lower cost dollars, but it'll destroy our economy. This is designed to make China, as Mr. Maurice Strong says, the prescient power in the New World Order, and they'll dictate to America. And by the way, they owe us more than $2 trillion going back to before the Communist Revolution, which they refused to pay. And we had an expert on a few months ago about this. And so-called, when people think that, quote, we have to borrow from China, we don't have to borrow from anybody. If we took over the Fed Reserve, we just coin the money we need, and it would be the full faith and value of the American government, and the Hamiltonian system would allow us to create the credit. We wouldn't pay interest to a bunch of global banksters. But we don't do that because we have criminals in our Senate and our Congress and our presidency who won't tell the truth.
Well, what really got us is basically the fact that, I mean, you have HPH. I spoke with a person, you know, that works for HPH. That's why I got on top of this, because this person told me about the lack of security at Mexican ports that are in fact controlled by Hutchinson Port Holdings, which is really a subsidiary of Hutchinson Wampoa, the biggest, Chinese, Hong Kong, whatever you want, controller of 136 ports around the world, including in Bahamas. They control the Panama Canal even.
Yeah, Panama Canal, Freeport, Bahamas, the largest non-U.S. port. And what they do now, by the way, according to the globalists, they want the cargo, without being checked or even opening the cargo to see if there's nuclear materials or weapons or anything in there, they want it shipped from Freeport, Bahamas, and the final port destination where they can open the containers or attach them to shipping logs and send them out in trucks or on a train is Kansas City. That's the, quote, inland port. So it gets checked in Freeport, Bahamas by foreign agents that want to act as proxies for the U.S. customs agents. That's our government collaborating with the Communist Chinese.
And we have also the situation with Lázaro Cárdenas in Michoacán, which is an enormous operation by HWL, and that's where they planted this super corridor into Kansas City, right, into Kansas.
Right. Yeah, by the way, none of it stopped, including the local governor of Texas. They just broke it up into pieces so people wouldn't protest the Trans-Texas corridor and these other super corridors. And 100% of the funding for these superhighways and superports in Mexico are completely paid for by the communist Chinese. And by the way, there's 80 million communists in China. The rest are slaves to a slave state. And it's really very ugly. People don't understand.
We have confirmation of this. We have confirmation from Mexican businessmen that do their dealings with China on a regular basis. They travel once a month to China, and they confirm that all the investment that China is doing south of the border is for military operations at the end of the road when they finally come and do their invasion, whatever they want to do.
Well, they're doing an economic invasion. Most people don't realize the single country that's doing $200 billion of industrial espionage per month, and the single country that's buying more land and more agricultural land and property per month than any other country is China. China. It's crazy. 80% of the new billionaires in the last decade are Chinese. These are communists that have taken all the property from all the other citizens, and now they're dumping money from all over the world, including speculative banking and with the lack of Glass-Steagall. And it's all ending up in Chinese coffers, and their superheated economy is still growing 7 times faster than ours, even though it's slowing down. And their biggest problem is they can't store all the stuff they're making. They're building warehouses to store it because they can't shut down their factories. Even though their economy is growing so fast, they're generating 10 employees for one job in China, and they're sucking up all of the manufacturing on the planet.
Precisely, and there's a very important tie-in here between HWL and the PLA. Basically, Li Ka-shing, who's this super billionaire from Asia, who was a high school dropout and basically became, suddenly the instant billionaire of Asia, is an 85-year-old man that basically signed deals with the People's Liberation Army over there in Hong Kong, and practically he sold out to the Chinese military and the Chinese Navy. The worries us is that Mexican ports, the vital Mexican ports, if an invasion, a military invasion, incursion by the Chinese or by the Russians, or I call it, the alliance, the unholy alliance, because you got North Korea in the mix, you have Iran, you have Sudan, and many others. The ports in Mexico are already compromised. Veracruz, Lázaro Cárdenas, Ensenada, Baja California, they are compromised, and Manzanillo in Colima, they're compromised to these interests. And who's going to stop them from allowing mass deposits of weapons coming into our country unchecked? This person I spoke at the port told me that, in fact, there is no real opening of containers. It's just a fast-track mechanism of just pressing a button and you're getting a green or a red light.
Right. 97% of the weapons that I've been told go through Long Beach, through the Chinese PLA port in Long Beach, California, go directly to the gangs in America made in China. The fact is that they're getting ready, but they want to have what I call an invasion. In other words, they're being invited with these we call trade zones in Idaho and right across the country.
Wow. Alrighty then. I guess he's talking about they're going to be invaded sooner or later, and they're lining it all up. But getting back to since all we have is this weekend for the Floridians and in other countries too, it's good to I already said to have a list, and always refer to your list, and make sure you have plenty of pet food, and if you have to stretch it with canned meat or something like that, and if you don't have and for if you have life jackets, that's good to always have one in, however many's in the car, people in the car, put it in the back seat. Make sure you have enough gas. Those who can't afford to leave, which is a lot of people now, Make sure you know where your local church is, a building, if you're living in a mobile home, trailer, or... And also, here's something that a lot of people don't know. You could start doing it now. What the sailors used to do, and people who, they go around the world in their sailboats, they wax their eggs. You boil up a whole bunch of eggs, and then you dip them in wax, and sometimes they're good up to a year. You can have, hard-boiled eggs that are good for a year if you wax your eggs. I think it's paraffin, the same stuff that you dip your hands in, the hot wax, something that's not toxic, just pure wax. And you can do, and what boaters do is that they boil their eggs and then they dip them in wax, and you'll have eggs for about eat and smell them first, make sure they're good. But see, a lot of places they don't have refrigeration. Alright, and hard-boiled eggs can last a long time if you wax them and try to keep them in a cool place, because you don't always have ice. Let's see if he's back.
Many of them.
No, he's not back yet. So that's another suggestion. Look it up online. Obviously, you guys have internet now if you're listening to me. Look up waxing eggs. Google that on the process, because I had an old sailor tell me that back when I was living on my boat. He says, "Oh, I'm going to wax some eggs." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, that's how we travel around." And that's what they used to do in the old days, too. Make sure you have some fruit, and vitamins is very important. Always have vitamins, vitamin C, multivitamins, and some extra C, zinc. It's good to have, if you have any plants outside before the hurricane, better bring them in. Can't bring them in? See if you can plant them outside, even though they might get destroyed. The pots won't fly around. The plants won't fly around, and the pots, and break your windows and smash other people's stuff. So if you bring in what you can, hopefully you're bringing in plants that are edible. Please bring in whatever's edible. If you can't eat it, it's not going to be worth hardly anything down the road.
The GCN Radio
Oh, he's coming
Network.
back. Plant whatever you can and then store the pots.
Alexander, let's expand on that report, because it's one that we had up in the BBC News here. It's a little incorrect. It says in Mexico, police fire on U.S. Embassy. You mentioned on the break that there were false Mexican police checkpoints. Apparently they fired at these diplomats, and they had armor-piercing weapons because they went through a bulletproof car. Some of the officials were apparently wounded in their car. Apparently, I think there were 2 Marines in the vehicle as well with these diplomats. They were fleeing from another car, so obviously there's a third car involved here. Sounds very scrambly in terms of what's going on. We know that the drug trade is a way of laundering money for keeping liquid capital coming into the United States to keep the economy floating rather than to just take over the Fed Reserve. And the drug cartels are part of the game. What's happening here? What's going on? Is this tied in with the Chinese issue, or is it something just a corrupt government down in Mexico that allows this to happen?
Well, in Mexico, the only institution that works now is corruption. Corruption is the institution of the 21st century for a failed state like Mexico. So what we're seeing here is it could be that the Mexican police is already corrupt as it is. So it could be that they fired upon an armored vehicle that was traveling south to the small city of Cuernavaca, 30 minutes south of Mexico City, from the U.S. Embassy. It had American personnel, 3 were injured. That's what we know so far. But what could be happening is that the drug cartels, they have uniforms of the federal police, and they can just put them on at random and open up a checkpoint at will. And people think it's an official checkpoint, but in fact, it could be used by them.
That's what I heard as latest is that the Zeta cartel is really getting much more aggressive. I don't understand why the U.S. doesn't collaborate with the Mexican government and send in the Marines and a full armed forces and actually just clean out these drug cartels. Why don't they just, instead of putting more forces into Iraq and Afghanistan, send a full force in there with air attack and everything and clean out this rat nest?
Well, it's very simple. That's what we asked for from the get-go. I mean, if you're going to isolate the cartels, do it well. And you evacuate even one of the states where they're operating, evacuate all people as an emergency war.
You put a notice that you're going to evacuate people to a place where they're going to get food and shelter out of the war zone. Then you actually cut off all the roads and set up a perimeter. And then you start an air attack on them and then clean them out like rats.
That's it.
And it's real simple. You know where they are. You got satellite photos that can track exactly where they are. By the way, with satellite photos, you can even track the signature of molecules. If you want to see a big depot of cocaine, they can see with a thing called nuclear spectroscopy from space called ion spectroscopy, which is basically the torsion field of the molecules, and they can actually tell you if there's a deposit of gold or oil, or if there's a molecule like cocaine. They can actually see it. Even if it's inside a building, shielded behind walls, etc., they can see it. And the fact is that there's a large deposit, you know the surrounding area, and you can see, if you look at your satellite photos, you can see all kinds of trucks moving and people walking around with fully automatic weapons and body armor. What could be easier, especially with our advanced technology?
Yeah, and all the U.S. drones that are flying over Mexican airspace. And
take those Predator drones instead of knocking off members of Al Qaeda, start knocking off these guys and go in and do it properly. You know.
Yeah, there's an interview. I rarely talk about the drug war because as journalists in Mexico, we get targeted all the time. It's getting worse each day. But I just did an interview in English for CRN. It's at alexanderbachman.com if people want to read it. But there, I talk about the recent Le Monde article that talks about. I translated the article from French to English. Excuse my French translation, but Mexico, the Spiral of Cruelty, it's called. And basically, what really got me there is that Le Monde is very harsh and critical against Calderon, but the new estimates of deaths by Felipe Calderon's sexennium of death is already at 120,000 people dead.
That's crazy. This is way exceeding the Gulf I and II and the Afghanistan war, and it's hard to believe that this is occurring on our border and we're allowing it. By the way, it's the major thing feeding into armed holdups and contract killings inside the United States in cities like Phoenix or Los Angeles or San Diego. It's the #1 reason.
And the thing is, you just go to Logan Heights in San Diego. You got them right there. And we have the situation where Le Monde is catalogizing this as the most fatal conflict on the planet in recent years. That's south of the border. That's how dangerous the situation is really getting.
Well,
Nobody's really dealing with it.
When I think of it, have you ever heard of, if you're a firefighter, you see what's called a fire zone. And I have a suspicion that the reason why they leave the drug cartels in this war to occur on the northern border of Mexico is because they want this fire zone to scare people so they won't try to cross into America, and they won't want Americans to escape into Mexico either if something happens in the United States. I'm suspicious that, because this could be easily cleaned up in probably a couple of weeks if we did it properly, logistically analyzed, if you want to call it war against drugs, a real war. And by the way, you need to make drugs not illegal, but you need to make it in such a way that if someone's involved with an illegal drug, quote, they lose their rights, and they have a medical doctor do a drug test. If you're positive, you're going to drug rehab. That's the end of it. And when people want to argue with Dr. Deagle, it's like, forget it. As soon as you're now addicted to a dangerous drug that's going to cause your suicide or the destruction of your life and your family, you're now going to a facility. And once you get well and we rehab, we're going to monitor you and we're going to do drug testing to make sure you stay clean. It's real simple. Then you stop the prison population, you stop sending people to prison for drug use, and you simply help them to stay well and keep themselves clean.
And what's even worse with the new statistics coming out, the homicides and everything going on the rise, we have a situation where we don't have the charts right now, but I saw them, and basically, you know, you had most of the deaths on the northern border. You had them on the states along the U.S.-Mexico corridor there, but now it's all over the country. Now it's normalized, and the killings are everywhere now.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's not good news. That means the cartels are expanding. We have 25 new cartels in Mexico right now.
Well, I need to change gears for a minute, and I want you to stay, Alexander, because we're going to continue some dialogue here.
Sure.
And we've got to talk about sinkholes, space weather, and other changes. And it ties, by the way, to what's going on in Mexico. China is in a disaster. They already are in what's called a pre-famine status, which is why they're buying up farmland everywhere. They're setting up farms, trying to buy farms in Brazil, in Mexico, importing food. And the Chinese people have discovered meat. They've also discovered driving. I watched a video yesterday and watched the Chinese driving. The most dangerous thing to do in the world is to actually go on a Chinese highway and try to see people without signaling, changing lanes like they're on cocaine. It's really bad. And, you know, they have 140,000 deaths per year, even though they have 38% less cars in America. That shows you how nuts it is there. And the Chinese basically are on slave labor. They want to have higher and higher wages. The U.S. government are pushing for higher yuan to make it more competitive, when in actual fact they want to just be able to pay off the debt, because they want to have a world which is, you know, Russia and China on one side, and America and Britain and Canada and the other nations on the other side, so the world is controlled by the banks. And they're all jockeying for position, which is why China is fully collaborating with the globalists in our Washington, D.C. White House to literally hand over America. So it won't just be an invasion, it'll be invite invasion. Just like these trade zones. When we come back, we're going to talk with Ann about space weather and other changes to the Earth, and Christina Consolo will be joining us as well.
All right. Now, some more prepper tips. You got to get anything that's loose furniture outside, from outside, inside, or in a shed. And make sure your shed is as secure as it can be. There's cable holding it down. Maybe some kind of cinder block thing that's buried to connected to the cables. You got to secure your sheds down, or weight them down best you can and secure them. And if there's something really important, bring it in. Especially if it's something you can make money with when there's no power. Like if you have one of those real lawnmowers that don't take gas or electric. It's just a real, you know, and you can put that in a secure place, maybe in a closet or somewhere, with a bunch of stuff on top of it. So, and you're not in the same room with it in case somehow everything collapses or the roof comes off. You don't want that blowing around you. But you might want to not leave your ladder, or I think a ladder, you got some tools in a drawer, and your basic tools, but bring your ladder in and secure it somewhere where it's not going to fly up and hit you, you know, but put your ladder somewhere in the house if it's clean. And you might want your hand mower, because you can maybe go out and mow other people's lawns too and make some money if you had to. But those are two very important things. That's what I say. That's the two most important things I think I have. Anything else outside, you might want to bring your bicycle in. That's important. Remember, anything outside that you'll be needing later, because there's no electricity, you might, if you can, bring it inside. As long as it's not toxic and you're not in the same room with it, in case something should happen and the roof gets blown off or the house starts getting torn apart, you don't want it to hit you. You don't want flying debris, but you also don't want to leave your barbecue, you know, a small one, you know. You don't want to leave it outside, you know, clean it off now. Make sure it's very clean, no bugs, nothing on it. You might want to bring it inside. You won't use it inside, but you might want to bring it inside so it doesn't get stolen or it just doesn't blow away.
InfoWars.
Okay, he still has a commercial. Again, have all your dog leashes and everything, cat carriers inside, just in case. You need your cat carriers have to be inside, your pet carriers. They should be inside anyway in case of emergency. What if you can't go outside and get them, but you have to, secure your pets?
Strong enough.
Alrighty then. And if you have any, I believe if you have any glasses up on top, bring everything down, just like in case there's going to be a quake or something. You got heavy stuff hanging on the walls and the walls start shaking or something, even in a, hurricane or a tornado, things will shake, especially a hurricane. Bring everything off the walls and put them down on the floor against the walls or in a bag and put them up again later. Pictures, anything with glass, anything important that if the house starts really shaking from the wind or whatever, you want everything off the walls. You put them up again later. You even clean the walls off before you put them back up. Or paint your walls if you want, if nothing happens.
And tell us the latest in space weather, sinkholes, what else is
back.
going on in our solar system in terms of the sun swinging around with that solar sunspot and other activity occurring with UV. And you sent me a very shocking report earlier today about the government back in March doing a little experiment that I thought was what I call Dr. Strangelove-ish in terms of putting some aluminum in the upper atmosphere. Tell us all about that.
Well, they've been doing this as part of HARP, High Altitude Research Project, and they've been doing this around the world. What they do is they send up an aluminum compound that burns with the oxygen, and then when they're sending it up as far as the troposphere, the DME bands, which are the lower two bands of the troposphere, and then as the dust falls, as the aluminum dust falls, it burns with the oxygen, and then they can see it because it's very bright.
Yeah, it also depletes the oxygen, so it can deplete the. Do you think it might be a major factor, along with the xenon-133 and radioiodine, actually depleting the ozone? Because we know the UV index has been off the charts. So, and it happened right after Fukushima. Now we know that the geoengineering, which Dr. Isley showed me back in 1997, the World Constitution Parliament Association, that the globalists have been doing to geoengineer not only the air on the troposphere, but the thermosphere. And you introduced this term about a year ago. That goes up to, 6 kilometers or so above the Earth. They've been messing with the planet without any permission, haven't they?
Well, it's the government. This is a NASA experiment, and they use trimethyl aluminum, CMA, and it forms milky white clouds. And so what they wanted to do, the experiment had nothing to do with changing the weather. Experiment, well, that's what they said.
Yeah.
What they wanted to do was they wanted to see how the wind, well, we don't have much wind in the thermosphere because it's so high above the ground, but they wanted to see whether the wind was simple or complex. In other words, when the aluminum ignited with the oxygen that was up there, it produced a bright light, and they could photograph it and then look at the patterns, and they could tell whether the atmosphere at that level was moving all in one direction or whether it was being
I'm sure that's
twisted
actually I don't believe that's probably the real reason. My guess is that's a complex scientific lie. The real issue is Dr. Isley told me they want to change the albedo or the reflectance of the Earth, and they're all trying to tell us, like I get the latest National Geographic, that, oh my gosh, what's up with the weather? That's the front of the magazine. What's really up with the weather is these maniacs trying to shove down our throat the idea that CO2 is a death gas, when really that's not the main thing. The death gases are things like from China, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and other volatile chemicals that are destroying the ozone, and these idiots putting nanoparticles, thorium, strontium, and aluminum up there that chew up the oxygen, which destroy the ozone layer. That's really deadly to crops and human beings, and it causes ground level ozone to occur down here that's toxic to us. So, besides all the changes occurring to the planet from volcanism into the oceans, these guys amplifying the problem dramatically by not cleaning up pollution in China and Indonesia and these other countries like India. And on the other hand, they're putting up stuff to make the problem much, much worse.
Anyway, they did this in March of this year, and they shot they put them on rockets, and they shot 5 canisters of this TMA into the thermosphere, which is above the stratosphere. Right. And then it burns slowly, but it uses up the oxygen. Well, then in the fall of this year, we discovered we've got an ozone hole over Greenland. And so, coincidentally, so it looks to me like what happened was they burned up the oxygen that normally would have been in the stratosphere, and then when the sun's ultraviolet light hits it, makes ozone. And so then that's why you had ozone layer. So it looks like the result of their experiment, they got their pictures that they wanted, and but it looks like they also created an ozone hole bigger than the size of the country of Greenland. And it looks like it's centered just about where they shot up this rocket full of TMA, trimethyl aluminum.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You had another report out as well that you sent today, and tell us about that.
Oh, okay. Well,
about the information suppression.
Yeah, this was published by MSNBC, and it was published on August 15th this year. So it's about last a week old or so. Yeah, it was last week, and scientists have well, there are natural fireball events in Earth's atmosphere. We have meteors that come in, we have asteroids that come in, and then, of course, we have the debris from the satellite programs, and they eventually burn up in the atmosphere. Well, scientists have been studying that, and now a recent United States military policy decision explicitly states that observations by hush-hush government spacecraft of incoming bolides and fireballs are classified secret and not to be released.
Yeah, in other words, and we have reports, in fact, I looked at one today from Australia. We have a report of this doctor, I believe his name is pronounced Ramos, a senior astronomer in Brazil, that identified, they call it Nibiru, I don't like to call it that, I call it the red dwarf star that comes in a periodic cycle from deep below the ecliptic every 3,600 plus a few years, 12 to 15 years. And it has a debris field around it of objects that rotate it because it's a small star. That comes back in periodic cycles. It's a red dwarf, not a brown dwarf star. It has a very powerful magnetic field, so it's likely to produce not only gravitonic effects, but more significantly coronal mass ejections in major solar storms. They don't want you to know that this is actually coming in. It really is coming in. This is no joke, and we didn't put dates on it, by the way. But we can tell you that we have reports from Australia, from the South Pole Telescope, from IRAS, and by the way, the Arecibo, which is a radio telescope, can see this. Because you can see it by radio telescope, you can see it by infrared, and you can see it by X-ray. That's how you identify this object coming in. It is now also close enough in that from Antarctica, from Australia, especially the east side of Australia and New Zealand, they can see this now. So if there's anybody down there, and you're an astronomer or you have access, you need to contact us with any photos or independent corroboration. They've actually stated also on YouTube, according to John today, YouTube's made statements that anything posted on Nibiru that looks real solid science or from one of these sources, they're going to remove it within 6 minutes. Your comments, Alexander?
Well, we know the red dwarf star is the biggest threat. It also ties into the terraforming of the planet for nefarious means. I mean, why else would you be modifying, the upper layers of the atmosphere unless you wanted to terraform the Earth for the visitors?
Well, it's not just visitors. I know they talk about the Nibirans and all this stuff. What I was told from Space Command, and this is what I was told, is that and this is 94, that they were expecting a major event to cause coronal mass ejections, and the reason why they're putting at Buckley and Peterson Air Force Base these nanoparticles up was to protect the Earth, like Teller talked about back in the 50s, at about 20,000 miles out into space, but not in the upper troposphere or the thermosphere, to protect it from CMEs knocking out civilization. So what they told me was, this had nothing to do with visitors or anything. This was literally to shield the Earth from a major solar storm that they expected sometime to happen. They told me within the next 20, and that was the mid-90s.
Yeah, so, it's a cyclical process. We know that, Cliff High has documented this very, very well, and the way that the sun, it starts, spinning counterclockwise both of its hemispheres, one clockwise, the other one counterclockwise. So it starts to wind up in its core, and every 10,000 years, it releases an excessive amount of energy, like a super coronal mass ejection, but that would dwarf the ones that we have today, and it would just really affect our planet. We'd go to magnetic zero probably, and get just fried by
it. It depends on whether or not it's pointed at us, because obviously we've had a lot of big ones lately, and you've had some reports of some pretty darn big M and X class. Luckily, they missed us. It's almost like a blindfolded maniac on a spinning platform with a shotgun, but they're not a good aim, thank God. But it has we've been grazed by them recently, and if it had a direct hit, a lot of the power in different parts of the world now, combined with all the other earth changes, like the pumping in India that caused their power grid to go down, the grid is going. And if you don't believe that, you're going to be surprised in the next few years that the grid is going.
Well, I don't know if that's the end of the program. It's getting close. But yeah, terraforming for the visitors. Oh. Well, we sure are living in strange and wondrous times. So, we'll see if this is the end. I believe they have one more. It should still be going. This is a very long program. And I hope you're enjoying it and you're getting some work done and preparing for the hurricane if you're in Florida or if you're somewhere else, that you have a few days to prepare. These are just tips that off the top of my head, since I semi-go live and just put it up, there's no stopping it. So that explains why they won't process my mutations and they won't process Nibiru. So I might have to put Nibiru up as a something else. And that way it'll process. Oh. But if YouTube's listening, come on YouTube. You're the ones who went down in history of letting people tell the truth. Don't break your reputation now. If it wasn't for YouTube, I'm sure YouTube, should get some kind of award for humanity. The humanitarian, award. You should get the Nobel Peace Prize, really. And I bet you do get that later on down the road when most of this is over with. Because, I don't know, a lot of the truth of what's really going on has gone through the passage of YouTube. And we love you, YouTube, for that. Let's see what's going on.
Computer, sure.
I would let it all fly and say, whoops, we didn't catch that. If you could. YouTube, you just do the most righteous thing you can do. That's all I got to say. So far, YouTube has been pretty righteous with a lot of the things. They have let a lot of the information out. They have gone with the freedom of speech. So, and we appreciate that. So, what else can you do? Just be prepared. Hopefully I gave you some tips. Let's see if he's back.
What?
No. If you got something real nice, make sure you got all your gold and silver too ready to go in case there's nothing else. At least you can barter and trade stuff. I bet you could barter some toilet paper for some beer. Things like that. Or cigarettes for toilet paper or beer. That goes a long way.
Bird is.
Or salt for whatever. For some sugar, or sugar for some salt. or flour, or, you know.
It's possible.
Oh, even a tin can in the sun with the lid back on it could be like a little oven to cook something. I'm telling you, right straight out in the sun on the cement. You can do all kinds of things. And a magnifying glass, you can start a good old-fashioned, you can make a fire with that if you had to, you know.
Where do you think it's going in the
He's
next number of months? Because we know I call the Passover star is approaching, probably in the next number of months or years. We know that we're going to have, in 2013, a major increase in cycle 24 of coronal mass ejections. They should have immediately, 3 years ago when they passed the congressional bill, Senator Lisa Murkowski, a Democrat, pushed for a green energy bill in the Senate and actually blocked the Senate approval of the bill that would harden the power grid against coronal mass ejections. The world's not ready for this. If we have major solar storms, the first thing that's going to happen is the grid's going to go. And I tell people that straight away, my process for power is number one. I have a 20 kilowatt generator with two 500 gallon tanks. I've searched around and found out, by the way, there's several different solar panel systems. The most advanced one I've seen so far, believe it or not, is Israeli. The Israelis, and there's a professor there, I hope to maybe get him on the program, he's decided to use a very efficient solar panel that's very small, and he actually focuses from a number of mirrors to the panel and can produce immense amounts of power. They have a actual setup for producing many kilowatts of power here in California from his company that's manufacturing parts of that like crazy in Israel. That's the most advanced. I've seen other systems that are out there, but this one is tried and proven, and it's not a stirring engine using water to create steam and then generate power. It goes directly from sunlight and mirrors directly to power, and can also heat water, so you can get thermal heating of water for your home and power. And by the way, the cost per kilowatt is lower than gasoline, natural gas, and other technologies. So this is a major breakthrough. And by the way, it's 2007 when he made this breakthrough, so there's 5 years old. So tell people you need to get lithium pyrophosphate batteries, which in the process I got a company we're going to be bringing on the program, and power controller. You need to be a water storage system for rain collection, and if you don't have a well and you could get a well, get a well. You need to be ready with 5-gallon stackable jugs. You need to have prepare-wise dehydrated food in mylar bags, seeds, a greenhouse, ways to filter your water against radioisotopes and other toxins, because they're putting all kinds of garbage in the air, including nanoparticle aluminum, which goes directly to your brain. It causes a thing called middle ion syndrome in the caudate and putamen nucleus. It can cause an extrapyramidal syndrome that can cause brain damage. It happens to people on renal dialysis because they can't remove the aluminum. What do you think, Ann? Where's this going in the next few years? Where the space weather issue and solar cycle 24, I think 2013 is going to turn out to be a scary year in terms of CME and lack of preparedness.
Well, I agree with you, and I think the next 2 years, actually, this is the year before the peak, and then there'll be the year after the peak. So it's not just 2013, it's all the way from 2012 to 2014. Right. And we've already had a solar flare that just scared the scientists speechless. It came in July 12th. It was an X1.4. Now, normally we don't think an X1.4 is all that big because it's just slightly above an M. 9.9. But this one, not only did it energize the ionosphere, it also dumped a lot of ionized protons in the atmosphere. So much so that we saw auroras as far south as Arkansas. And I have a picture of an aurora over St. Louis.
Right, but also did another thing. It did a thing called pulsing the Earth with ultraviolet light as well. They
called it strobing, and that's never been reported before. Now, this was all in an after report. There was no forewarning on this.
No forewarning on it. Now, here's what would happen if you get major strobing of ultraviolet light. You can destroy crops because it's a matter of a day or two of high energy strobing of the Earth. Number two, it can cause cataracts. It can cause a thing called pterygion, P-T-Y-E-R-G-I-O-N. It can cause skin damage. It can suppress your T cells throughout your body for surveillance of cancer. It can throw off your immune system so you can get an infection, like a pneumonia or a sinus infection or whatever. So people think that it's not benign. Ultraviolet light we call A is tanning light, B is burn, C is cancer, and D is called death. Ultraviolet light can be very, very nasty, and also ultraviolet light can penetrate through the ice and dissolve ice faster than heat. So ultraviolet light in the northern atmosphere, where the ozone hole is, actually is literally melting the snow from above, while the permafrost and the underlying underoceanic volcanism from the Gakao Range and other areas is melting the snow and the ice from below. So high energy ultraviolet light, those both are very, very bad for the polar caps.
NASA showed pictures of the Greenland ice cap, and it showed it one day on July 8th and then one day on July 12th. That's when the satellite passed over it, and in those 4 days, sometime in those 4 days, the ice cap melted. The top layer of the ice cap melted, and it's an astonishing picture. I mean, that's how much UV energy came in through the ozone hole that sits over Greenland.
Right. Yeah. If you, in other words, you take a big block of ice and you want to carve it, you don't carve it with infrared light. You carve it with ultraviolet. Ultraviolet light will penetrate in many, many feet, even much deeper than that, create giant crevasses and these water channels in the ice. And when it starts to move, then it can further act, and then you've got real problems. So
now, you know that if that ice sheet on Greenland were to melt and go into the ocean, that the level of the ocean level would go up by 100 feet.
Yeah, it's estimated between 100 and 140 feet if it's totally melted, because the amount of actual fresh water on the Earth. I think the Iceland ice sheet, which is actually depressing it into the crust of the Earth, is so large. I think it's actually something like 24 to 30% of the entire freshwater on the planet is actually locked in that ice sheet.
Yeah, and you know, at one time Greenland was green. There were people that lived on Greenland, much like Iceland.
Yeah.
But then the little ice age came and covered it with the glacier. And that glacier, like you said, if the whole thing should, now this UV strobing, they're saying that they think that the top of the ice sheet is being frozen again from underneath. But I haven't seen any pictures to that effect.
Yeah, this thing will happen on and off, but the problem is we're going to have major calving of new icebergs. You can see it off the coast of Newfoundland. I've seen giant icebergs, and there's a whole trail goes along the coast between Labrador and Newfoundland, and these things are enormous. I mean, you have no idea. They make giant super tankers look like tiny little acorns floating out in the water when you compare them to these icebergs. They're immense.
And then the CME hit, you know, the power went out in India for 2 days.
Now, we don't know if the CME is directly caused of it. Was it around that same time when it went out?
Yep.
So it was a combination of increased load because they were pumping water from the drought and the CME. So was it the same date that happened then?
Fairly close, yes.
Yeah. Now, of course, if you have stress systems, you also lose equipment too.
They are not studying the effect of the CME on the Greenland ice sheet or on the Indian power outage. I mean, there's no studies underway.
The other thing that people should be aware of, and we talked about this because the warning system here at the University of California is actually telluric measurements of the tectonic San Andreas fault system. So their warning system is to measure the ground currents of piezoelectric electricity. And so if you have major CME activity, the piezoelectric activity can reach what's called the piezoelectric slip threshold, which can cause San Andreas to release its energy. Now, in Los Angeles, in the area that's just outside of Los Angeles where the San Andreas Fault goes, I think they call it the Northridge area, that area has 12 feet of recoil of the rocks. And if it moves 6 inches in one movement, it would destroy 75% of the standing structures in Los Angeles. 6 inches out of 12 feet.
I was in Pasadena when the Northridge earthquake struck, and I knew people that lived up in there.
Yeah.
And it was the strongest earthquake I ever felt.
Yeah, well, the one that we went through Easter 2011. Yeah. It was, and we have our houses actually drill and rebar into blue granite, which is the second hardest granite on the planet, besides the granite that makes stones in Scotland. And we're at 1,000 feet. There's a mountain behind us that's another 700, 800 feet high. And we have, our home is about 4,500 square feet, and around 6,000 square feet of concrete. And it was like you're on top of a rubber sheet. And the sound was so loud. What I'm really surprised is how loud earthquakes are. everything was moving, rattling. Everything was making so much noise, it was like 100 decibels. It was crazy. It was like being behind a jet engine. Rattle, rattle, rattle for about like 25 to 30 seconds.
Anyway, it's a real shame that the data from the classified satellites is no longer being sent down to NASA.
That's a real flag. Is a, you know, as they say in the government, or if you're a forensic investigator like John Moore, don't believe that they're lying until they actually try to cover up what you're looking for. In other words, when they start to say that you can't see the data, oops, that's a big oops. Like, you can no longer put it in the, you guys are those spooky conspiracy theorists. No, the government now doesn't want us to even look at the data. That's a big red flag, isn't it?
That's right, Bill.
Yep, amazing. Great report, Emerson, Alexander Bachman. We'll have Christina Consolo back next week with our report. Somehow we didn't connect today, but we will have her back. Take care, everybody. Take action.
Well, this has been a very long show. I hope you like some of the tips I gave you. Fill up your water bottles right now with your empty soda bottles if you have any. Take care, and I'll catch you on the flip side tomorrow.